What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and we are back with Doctor Strange Damnation. I was going to cover Strange Academy, but then I realized that we were supposed to cover Doctor Strange Academy on Sunday, but a lot's happened over the course of the last 2 to 3 weeks, so I was a little distracted. But we are back to our normal self. So here's the thing, right? In the first video that we did, when we did Doctor Strange Damnation, essentially, Doctor Strange has resurrected, or at least brought back the city of Las Vegas after it was destroyed during the events of Secret Empire. But because of the fact that Las Vegas is the city of sin, and because of the fact that it had basically just been sent directly to hell when it was destroyed, Mephisto seized control of it. And so when Doctor Strange resurrected or brought back Las Vegas, he accidentally brought Mephisto with him. And as you guys know from our coverage of like the Fear Lords like Nightmare and the Chaos Lords like Dormammu and the Hell Lords like Mephisto, that usually whenever they show up and they have a way to enter Earth, they don't usually stop at one place, right? They do everything they can to conquer the whole realm. And the reality is Mephisto has been trying to find a way to conquer Earth forever. And so Doctor Strange just gave him a way to do it. And so what this led to was, of course, the Avengers assembling, but being overtaken by Mephisto and he didn't even fight him. That's the thing. Mephisto didn't even fight the Avengers. Like literally, he was standing in his penthouse and just seized control of the Avengers and turned them into Ghost Riders. Just the kind of level of power that we're talking about here, right? He didn't even have to like fight them directly. He could be like a little ways away, drinking a cup of coffee and defeat them, right? It's kind of nuts. And so in response to this, Wong, who of course was the only person that could really do anything, right? Doctor Strange is really in a bargain with Mephisto now, so he can't really act directly. The result of this is that Wong basically started assembling the Midnight Suns. Now, the first person he visits here is Blade. Of course, Blade's in the middle of fighting vampires, and once the whole fight's done, he's like, hey man, we need your help. And that's kind of the thing. At that point, he switches over to Elsa Bloodstone. Now, we'll talk about Elsa Bloodstone here in a little bit, because let me tell you something, man, a lot of the characters in Marvel Comics are kind of cool. Elsa Bloodstone's legit. She doesn't take anybody's shit, and she's one of the coolest characters out there that just never really gets any attention. Fingers crossed we see her in the future of the MCU, because she's just amazing. But the next thing, of course, we switch over to Danny Rand, who's just kind of practicing his martial arts and talking to Wong, because when you're Danny Rand, you just practice martial arts. You practice ways to stay relevant. And then, of course, we get to Moon Knight, who's also brought in. And then we get to Jericho Drum. Now, the funny thing about this is Jericho Drum, as far as people that could offer any legitimate assistance here, he's only one of two, right? The reality here is that Jericho Drum is also known as Brother Voodoo and then eventually Dr. Voodoo. A little tidbit here for you guys. When Doctor Strange basically lost his role as the Sorcerer Supreme due to his refusal to help the Vishanti in their war, that when he was stripped of that mantle, it went to Jericho Drum. And Jericho Drum became the new Sorcerer Supreme. Now, of course, eventually Stephen Strange got the title back, but his powers were reduced, which is the way that Marvel kind of took him away from being like the old school, ultra powerful Doctor Strange who could basically do anything he wanted to and was a walking, talking plot device, to making him just a guy who could do some cool stuff but could also still be defeated. And so really ever since then, and even the years leading up to his appearance, Jericho Drum has always kind of been like a background Doctor Strange, right? Like a substitute Doctor Strange. If for whatever reason Stephen's incapacitated, Jericho Drum usually steps up. But at that point, we switch over to the final person being brought in by Wong as part of the Midnight Suns, and that person is Johnny Blaze's Ghost Rider. Now, the funny thing is, like, when he shows up here, basically Ghost Rider's filling up his gas tank, which is weird. Why does a Ghost Rider need gas? And then in turn, he buys some scratch-offs. And I just felt like that needed to be said because it's just kind of how Johnny Blaze is, right? He's like 26 on 12 and 2 of those scratchers. But the other thing is that there's a girl buried in an unmarked grave, a little girl that's buried in an unmarked grave, and basically nobody helped her, right? And when something happened to her, whatever that happened to be. So of course, Johnny Blaze is gonna go there. He's basically gonna torment the townspeople, destroy them, and then send their souls to hell. Now, of course, Wong basically talks him out of it and simply saying like, Mephisto has returned to Earth. Now, here's the reason why Johnny Blaze blows that off. And it's important to understand the relationship between the two to even understand, one, the power of Johnny Blaze, and two, why he's doing this. So the power of Johnny Blaze is such that as the Ghost Rider, this dude's broken. Like, Ghost Rider's so overpowered, he basically has a portion of Mephisto's power. So that's why it's not uncommon to see someone like Ghost Rider just wreck Worldbreaker Hulk, or to see someone like Ghost Rider potentially even go toe-to-toe with a person like Galactus. The most powerful item, or really the most powerful aspect aspect of Ghost Rider is his pin and stare, right? Like if he makes you endure the pin and stare, so long as you're not somebody like Punisher who doesn't feel bad for what they do or whatever it is, you will experience a physical pain that is the representation and the manifestation of all the pain you've ever caused to anybody over the course of your life, right? It's just absolute torment. And that's only a fraction of what you will endure when you get sent to hell. But of course, Johnny Blaze was turned into the Ghost Rider by Mephisto, right? And so the result of this is that he harbors a particular hatred for Mephisto. One, because of what Mephisto stands for, and two, because of the bargain that was struck when he entered into it unwittingly and was ultimately transformed into the Ghost Rider. Now, of course, once the group is brought together, there's some legitimate questions that are being asked here, right? The first question that's really asked, at least by Johnny Blaze, is, hey man, so like the last time Doctor Strange was doing his thing, he basically hung out with the Sentry. Why don't we just have the Sentry do it? And of course, the response of Wong is, one, the Sentry hates Doctor Strange, and two, it's not a good idea. Now, the reason why this is not a good idea here is because if the Sentry were to be brought in and then face off against Mephisto, Mephisto would probably pull out the Void personality and then subjugate it. And then in turn, you would literally have the personification of death and destruction across the universe under the control of Mephisto. Okay, here's some perspective. When the Void first manifested in Marvel Comics in the mainline universe, right? Not in the old Paul Jenkins, Jay Lee what if story from, like, it was unofficially called a what if story, but like that alternate reality story. I mean, like when Brian Michael Bendis brought the Sentry into the main Marvel universe through New Avengers, when the Void personality manifested, and this is just the Void by himself, a full contingent of the Avengers and the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, they could do nothing to stop this guy. They could do absolutely nothing to stop the Void, right? So imagine that person whose power is amplified by the power of Mephisto and then just sit on a warpath, right? Like it would be the end times. Now at that point, like Elsa Bloodstone kind of chimes in and it's like, okay, look, like here's the other question I have though. I mean, like if the Avengers were defeated by Mephisto and he didn't even have to do anything, what's the point of us being here, right? Like a handful of us, some martial arts guy, some guy who just doesn't know which personality is his actual personality, some useless vampire hunter, and then Blade's like, what? Like, hold on, repeat that again, useless, and Elsa Bloodstone's like, look, dude, I'm a monster hunter by trade, because she is, right? I mean, she literally has, like, she's the daughter of Ulysses Bloodstone, so she's half human and basically half, like, super powerful, and, like, she's immune to vampires and things like that, but she's like, I literally hunt, like, monsters by trade, and I never see vampires. Like, they're the least prevalent thing, and even then, knowing the monster world as I know it, they're the least important thing, right? Like, what you are doing is basically busting shoplifters and then, like, trumping yourself up as some guy who's protecting the national interests of America, right? Like, come on, man, you hunt vampires, right? And like, at that point, Blade's like, whatever, man, just be happy you don't see any vampires. You're welcome for that, by the way. And it's like, okay, whatever, right? So it's, that's why I love, Elsa Bloodstone. Elsa Bloodstone, man, she does not give a damn. Dude, she'll call it like it is, man. In a lot of ways, she's like the internet, right? There's no filter. She just says what she thinks, right? The internet and children are very similar in that regard. And so ultimately, Wong basically finishes it all off and says, look, I called all of you here for a reason, right? Like, for the most part, you're either dead, damned, or you carry darkness with you, and none of you are without sin. And he says, I chose you because you are our only hope of fighting Mephisto without adding to his ranks. And if I'm being completely honest, I chose you because if you get turned, I believe it within my power to bring you down before you hurt others, right? So it's like, even if Mephisto takes you, I could beat you. So, like, I mean, it's the thing. Now, the funny thing about this is that Wong actually has an ace up his sleeve, and we'll find out what that is, but it's one of the most genius maneuvers in writing. Like, even when Donny Cates, in the early days, and because this is like one of Donny Cates' early stories, right? Him and Nick Spencer basically wrote Damnation. Even when he was like an early writer, you could tell this guy was just destined for greatness as a comic book writer, right? He's absolutely amazing. So here's the thing, like at that point, Wong's like, okay, we're leaving in 30 minutes, everybody get ready. Now, once they arrive at the Vegas Strip, I mean, the battle kind of goes the way you would expect it to. Not even lying, right? It's just, I mean, looking at this roster, you're kind of like, okay, so like this is gonna go one of two ways. Like either everybody's gonna get wrecked, or like someone somewhere is going to just happen to do the right thing at the right time and basically save the day. And so it's kind of like, okay, basically it's the former. Blade gets hit with the hammer of Thor. No one seems to be able to lift it off of Blade, so he's just stuck in place, right? Literally with a hole burning in his chest. But the crazy thing is that in the middle of all this, like in the middle of this battle, right? Like where you have all these guys who are facing off, a cement truck just comes flying out of nowhere. And it's like, where did this even come from? Only to find out that it's actually Ben Reilly, the Scarlet Spider, who's got AK-47 strapped to his back, using his classic costume, or close to his classic costume, and was probably one of the most awesome depictions of his character ever, right? One of the most awesome things. And literally he's like, okay, that's not gonna keep him down for very long. You guys are all gonna be safe with me. And everybody's just kind of like, I mean, but like, really though? And he's like, what, man? I live here, right? Like I live in Las Vegas. And so it's kind of cool, right? Because of course, everybody starts popping back up again. But in the midst of this, when they're trying to make their escape, you end up finding out that basically Doctor Strange's soul has been taken, like he's been captured by Mephisto. Basically, he's a servant of Mephisto now. So essentially, like this is a huge deal, right? Because now it's the power of Doctor Strange that's basically available to Mephisto that can be used against these guys. And that's when things start getting bonkers, because at that point, one, you have people trying to get the hammer off of Blade, because at that point it looks like he's dead. Literally, it's a flaming hammer. It's a hell hammer, which is really cool. But like, it's a hell hammer of Thor, right? Being wielded by Jane Foster. Nobody seems to be able to get it off. And then you get this crazy weird moment, right? I mean, you have like Wong facing off against Doctor Strange, but everybody always forgets about bats, right? Everybody always forgets about the ghost dog. Like literally, Doctor Strange goes to use the penance stare on Wong, and if he pulls it off, it'll destroy him, right? I mean, it won't necessarily destroy his physical form, but it'll break his mind, and then he'll kill him, and then he'll send Wong to hell. And Wong is really the linchpin here, right? If Wong falls, this battle's over. And the reality is that with the Avengers being conquered as fast as they were, assuming that you even have anybody that can go toe-to-toe with Mephisto, which frankly, Rich would probably be the best bet for that anybody outside of him would likely be conquered. And at this point in time, remember, Franklin's a kid, right? And he still has mental blocks in place. You'd have to remove those and then just cross your fingers and hope he doesn't destroy all of creation in the process. And then ultimately Mephisto would conquer the world. And that would be the end of it. And no one out there in space, the Shi'ar, the Badoon, the Kree, the Skrull, they're not gonna care, right? Because remember, one of the things we've always talked about is, as far as they're concerned, humanity's a pain in the ass. And so it's kind of nuts, because when he goes to use the penance stare and Wong is basically ready to meet his fate, because there's really nothing he can do, Bats possesses Doctor Strange. And so at that point, Doctor Strange is possessed by his own dog, which is kind of nuts, but cool at the same time. He's like, okay, cool, like thumbs. Okay, this is cool. I can work with thumbs. Thumbs are awesome, right? Like Bats is just enamored by the fact that he has thumbs. He's like, the things I can do with thumbs. It's pretty amazing. It's pretty cool. But what it does is it removes Doctor Strange from the equation. It kind of evens the playing field a little bit. And then you basically switch over to Mark Spector, who for a reason that's never really clarified here, and we're not even really sure he was able to do it, is able to lift the hammer off of Blade. Now, here's the thing. What's really, really murky about this is we don't know if he was able to do it because he's actually worthy, because immediately after that happens, the hammer is summoned by Jane Foster. So, did he lift it as Jane Foster was summoning the hammer, or was Moon Knight worthy to lift Thor's hammer? Let me know which one you guys think, right? Let me know if you guys think, like, which one do you think it is? Do you think he's worthy, or do you think it just kind of happened at around the same time? I'm curious, right? But essentially with the hammer out of the way, right? Like with Blade able to kind of return to his normal self, Blade steps up, he actually stabs Thor in the face, which is kind of nuts. And then you basically have this kind of plan that's implemented by Wong, right? This backup plan. And it's sheer genius the way that Wong does this. So while everybody's fighting everybody else, he tells Johnny Blaze, now's the time, right? Him and Johnny Blaze basically kind of had a meeting behind the scenes and was like, I'm going to ask you to make a sacrifice, and I need to know, can you do this, right? The price you will pay for the sacrifice that you will make will be eternal, but I need to know if you can do this. And the response of Ghost Rider was basically, if it ends Mephisto, sure, right? If it leads to the defeat of Mephisto, it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. And so what ends up happening here is Johnny Blaze literally takes off on his motorcycle and then rides up Hotel Inferno, right? Rides up this building to the penthouse of Mephisto and goes to confront him with the intention of destroying him. At that moment, Mephisto lifts the curse of the Ghost Rider off of Johnny Blaze, right? So Johnny Blaze is effectively mortal. In turn, Mephisto kicks him out of the building and kills Johnny Blaze, right? Johnny Blaze is essentially dead, right? And he's just like, and when the question is asked, like, why in the world did Mephisto, like when Johnny Blaze, like, why did you do that? The response of Mephisto is, for the hell of it, right? So with Johnny Blaze dying, his soul is basically sent to hell, because remember, he entered into a bargain bargain with Mephisto. And whenever you enter into a bargain with Mephisto, your soul is taken to hell, right? It's taken to the realm of Mephisto. Now at that point, Mephisto's like, okay, cool, we're done, right? This fight's gone on long enough. This whole thing needs to end. It's been slightly entertaining, but like he basically tells all his henchmen, kill him, right? Kill the Midnight Suns, be done with it. The problem is that when that happens, his soldiers attack him, right? Like the Avengers attack Mephisto. And when the question is like, why? That's when you get the ruse. Wong is like, okay, so like I couldn't tell any of you because the risk was too great, but this is the deal that I made with Johnny Blaze. With Johnny Blaze basically being sent to hell, and with Mephisto absent from his throne, it leaves the throne vacant, that someone can take it. As long as you sit on the throne of Mephisto, you will obtain the role of being the ruler of hell. You will take the crown of hell. And because Mephisto is away from his own realm, because he in effect, quote unquote, abdicated the throne, Johnny Blaze has taken his place. Johnny Blaze is now the new leader of hell. Just a ridiculously just pull the rug out from under you kind of situation. I love it, right? So for those of you guys who are curious as to how it was that Johnny Blaze became the Lord of Hell, this is how it happened. It was a trick by Mephisto. It's using Mephisto's own motivations against him. It's the thing that Mephisto never considered. If he sent Johnny Blaze to hell, but he himself wasn't in hell to maintain his throne, then what would happen here, right? Like what would end up going on? And so the response is when he's told that, Mephisto initially refuses to believe it. And it's like, no, there's no way that's true. But on the off chance that it is, let's go to hell, my friend. Let's go to hell, Wong, and let's find out if that's the case, right? So he literally rips open a portal. Him and Wong end up descending into hell. Doctor Strange tries to save Wong where he can, but ultimately he just can't. And Wong ends up basically falling down into the realm of hell. But instead of falling there and dying, because Johnny Blaze is the one who runs it, Johnny Blaze is like, no, you're good, man. You're cool, right? Like, it's because of you all this was possible in the first place. So in the end, what you end up getting is basically this kind of knockdown, drag out fight between Mephisto and basically the rest of the Midnight Suns along with Doctor Strange. The biggest issue here, and what's interesting, is that Wong really puts off this idea, and it feels like a kind of unnecessary aspect of the story, but Wong puts off this idea that for a long time, Stephen Strange kind of saw himself in isolation, right? He saw himself as like the Sorcerer Supreme, but never really saw himself as somebody that had the ally of friends. And so as a result, right now, because the forces of the Avengers are still under the control of the Lord of Hell, which at the moment is Johnny Blaze, their souls still belong to him. Those souls can be controlled. And so the response of Wong is what Stephen Strange needs is to be reminded that he's not alone, that he's not fighting by himself. Him resurrecting Las Vegas, trying to prove himself to the world, that was him trying to find something, right? Trying to find an aspect of himself that he felt was lost. He's like, but show him that he's not fighting on his own. Show him that he's fighting with, as part of a larger group. And so basically what you end up getting is Johnny Blaze essentially taking the souls of the Avengers and then bonding them to Doctor Strange, which of course amps his power and it allows him to overcome Mephisto. Mephisto in turn is sent back to his own realm of hell where Johnny Blaze awaits him. And the crazy thing here is that once he's there, basically what Johnny Blaze has done is assembled everyone who's ever been turned into a Ghost Rider in the history of the universe by Mephisto. And that because time passes differently there, a few hundred years in hell is only a few seconds on Earth. Basically, Mephisto spends a few years in hell just getting absolutely beat up, right? Getting absolutely trashed. Something that I also do want to point out here. Whenever people think of Ghost Rider, when they think of how Ghost Rider looks, what you're actually thinking of, the person you're actually thinking of, is Danny Ketch. So looking at this image here, the guy with the crown on his head, that's Johnny Blaze. But the guy to the left of him with the chain across him, that's Danny Ketch, right? That's the one you're thinking of. So again, in the front, going from left to right, you've got Danny Ketch, you've got Johnny Blaze, and then you have Robbie Reyes, the newest Ghost Rider that exists out there. But of course, following them, basically pummeling him, they send him back to Earth with a note that says like, go easy on him, right? He's had a rough couple of years, right? The thing about this being, if he stays in his own realm for too long, he'll basically seize control of hell again. So the only way to basically keep Mephisto out of the picture is to keep him on Earth, because the longer he's away from his realm, the weaker he becomes. All the way to the point where I imagine if he's away from his realm long enough, he's really no more powerful than someone like Captain America or just some average person. We don't really know, because we really haven't had instances where Mephisto has been outside of his realm for like months or years at a time. He only ever really shows up out of his realm for like a few moments, right? For like maybe a story arc or something like that, and then goes back. And in fact, he's made a prisoner in his own Hotel Inferno. He's basically locked away. Hotel Inferno itself ends up becoming a massive tourist attraction. Literally everybody starts showing up there. It's like the most popular hotel in all of Las Vegas, and it makes sense. I don't know if you guys have been to Vegas. Vegas is amazing so long as you don't go during the summer. You should go during like the late fall or like the early spring. Winter's not a bad time, but like, it's literally the middle of the desert, right? Like, you're gonna freeze. It's either really hot or really cold, right? It's never really in between. It's temperate, right? But like, it's really, really cold, and it gets cold in the wintertime. But having been to Vegas like 3 or 4 times myself, yeah, man, I would go to Hotel Inferno. I would check it out. I mean, do I need to worry about my soul being taken to hell? No? Okay, cool, yeah, let's go check it out, right? I mean, it's like, if there's like a warning sign outside there that like, there's like, warning, upon entry, your soul will be taken to hell, where it will be tormented by a demigod looking to attain control of Earth by any means necessary, then yeah, I probably wouldn't go in. But even then, I mean, if they were like, but like the ribs are bomb here, I'd be like, maybe for like a couple minutes, you know? It's just one of those things. But with that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this video to an end. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all later. Peace.